Hey everyone, today we're talking about the steps that governments tend to take in order to go against hoarders, right? Governments tend to use the same playbook every time when we see Venezuela, when we see China, when we see India, when we see Pakistan, when we see Argentina. All these countries, they tend to follow the very same process as they demonize free enterprise and the capitalist system. So if you have a concern about what you have stocked up, or whether you just really hope your neighbors get theirs or something like that, we're going to talk about the process of how governments go after hoarders in order to stabilize the market. So welcome back to Poplar Preparedness. We just passed 7,000 subscribers. You guys are awesome. I am so excited to be to be entertaining you guys and hopefully informing you guys. A lot of the information that I'm providing to you is information you're providing me. So some people get really upset that I'm aggregating information from lots of sources, unique sources, you guys, and giving it back to you and seeing what I'm seeing on the shelves at stores nearby. But you know, I want to be a reporter here, and I don't want to just regurgitate the news stories that everyone else is regurgitating, because you got other channels for that. And sometimes, you know, you see the prepper community someone pops a topic, one of the big name channels pops a topic, and then suddenly everyone starts jumping on that bandwagon, and suddenly all we're talking about is, you know, nuclear war or something like that for the next week or two. And, you know, I try not to jump on those bandwagons just because I respect you guys and respect that you can find that information whenever you want to. So let's talk about hoarding. Obviously, that's a very offensive term to those of you who have been preparing. You have been preparing for the future. You've been preparing for disasters and such. And when a natural disaster comes, flooding comes to your community, and you suddenly start passing out medical equipment, the last thing you want to hear is someone look at you and say, "Why are you hoarding all of these supplies?" You know, you look at their $90,000 car, and you could really just look at them and say, "Why were you hoarding all that car?" Right? You spend a couple $100 stocking up some food, and people call you a hoarder, or toilet paper, and they'll drop $90,000, $100,000 on a car, and they won't even think twice about it. So it's kind of ridiculous in the first place. But there's this idea out there that shortages happen because of hoarders. People hoarding cause shortages. That's the myth out there, which is not true at all. What happens is when there are shortages, there are hoarders, right? When there's a shortage, people realize that the price hasn't gone up, and yet these supplies have become much more valuable. So there's an inefficiency in the market, and so some people start trying to exploit that. So the first stage of government intervention is, as prices go up, they start trying to shame people. They'll start putting pressure on people, shaming them for getting more than their fair share. Now, this is a very soft step, but it is a real step nonetheless. They start trying to kind of twist the screws on people who are buying too much, or who just have too much, right? Now, the second step, which we are seeing happen in Turkey today, actually, as the lira in Turkey is imploding, they are blocking off the escape routes for people to exchange their lira into things. So they've blocked already people exchanging their liras into cryptocurrencies, made that illegal. Now you can't exchange your liras into dollars or other stable currencies like the euro or Swiss francs or that kind of a thing. So what did people start doing was they started trying to move their money into hard assets like food, which of course causes more inflation. So just today, Turkey proposed and is looking at putting fines on people. Now, we'll get to that in just a second. People that are hoarding food or other supplies. So the second step is they go after businesses, okay? Businesses, usually not even individuals yet, They start going after businesses because businesses are easy to target and nobody really cares about them anyway, right? So this is where you'll start seeing pressure exerted on companies like Walmart's or grocery stores or Amazon or other companies like that. You'll see this strong arm start looking at potentially fining these companies for selling their product for too high of price, higher than they should be charging, right? We saw this in the United States last year. The government went after Amazon, Walmart, and eBay to stop price gouging. Now, that was a little bit unusual this time around because that hit a bunch of small sellers. Normally, they just go after the big businesses first, then they start, as things get more difficult, they start twisting the screws on the smaller sellers and going down smaller and smaller until they eventually go after individuals. But this time around, they used the platforms like Amazon and eBay to go after individuals who were trying to resell, kind of creating a black market on eBay and such like that. I believe even Craigslist shut down postings and such like that. So in Turkey, that's what we're seeing right now, is we're seeing that they're going after people who are flipping, who are trying to profit off of the shortage. And that's the thing that you see oftentimes. They don't so much go after the companies and the people that are hoarding, buying and holding. They go after the people who are buying, holding, and then reselling at a higher price. They start going after the price gougers. That's like the second step there. Shaming, and then they start going after those who are profiting. So in the United States, as far as we went, it looks like in this last go-around with masks and hand sanitizers and stuff like that. So in the United States, we actually have laws against price gouging. And most states, those anti-price gouging laws go into effect when there is a state of emergency declared. So this last go-around, some people were flipping masks back and forth, selling them on eBay, Amazon, that kind of thing. But once a few states declared a state of emergencies, their anti-price gouging laws went into effect. And that's probably the stick that really brought Amazon and eBay and such to heel, because if anyone sold those things to one of those states, then potentially those bigger companies would be liable for those things. And California and some of these other states would absolutely go after Amazon for that. So that's why I think we saw such a strong response from eBay, Amazon, and the other online sellers, is because they didn't want to be hit with these massive penalties from anti-price gouging laws. So it seemed like the government had a little talk with them about how they should not be doing that and such. But in reality, it was probably those state anti-price gouging laws that went into effect. So in Pakistan, just a month ago, November 8th, they had an issue with sugar. And they still are, from what I gather. So they went after the price gougers. All the links to these articles and such like that, if you want to read into them, these situations a little bit more, are in the description down below. So Pakistan brought in, as it says, a crackdown on sugar hoarders. Once again, they went after the businesses that were trying to flip the sugar, right? So they had either purchased it before or they were buying it up so that they could then resell it at a higher rate, which is a basic function of capitalism. All right, so hopefully you guys are starting to see a pattern here. First, the government shames the individuals and businesses and such, and when that doesn't work, they then move on to fining businesses that are hoarding the materials. They go after even down to individuals potentially with fines for that. And then they start moving into confiscation mode, where they start confiscating the raw materials. Particularly, they start with when they start talking to companies that, like they go after manufacturers or mills, and they start talking to them, why aren't you producing these things at a reasonable price? And then they will always throw the blame onto like the farmers or the distributors. Well, we can't buy the wheat, or we can't buy the whatever at a reasonable cost. That's why we can't keep our manufacturer lines going on, because if we could, then we would produce this at the cost. So what they go is after the raw resources. So an example here is Argentina back in 2013, where they started confiscating those who had stocks of wheat so that the mills could then produce the bread and the flour and such. And so that's what we see consistently, is we see them go after the raw materials, the farmers, because those guys usually aren't as well connected politically and, paid off the right people. So the companies that may have the raw materials, or the farmers that have it, or the lumber mills, not lumber mills, the tree cutters, that kind of a thing, they'll tend to side with the big mills or the manufacturing companies against those who have the raw materials. But usually that doesn't work out very well, because they run out of raw materials real fast. So the next step is, as you can see here in the description down below, looking at Venezuela back in 2009 is a perfect example. They went after those who were hoarding the rice, and then they ran out of rice. So what they did was they then confiscated the manufacturing hubs. So they take the mills, they take the factories over. They send troops and police or whatever, and they take those things over. And the people that were playing all those political games trying to get on the good side of the government, see, the government always needs to do something. Doesn't matter whether it actually fixes the problem or not. They need to be seen as people taking action. It's always somebody else's fault, and always the government has to take action. So that's what they do. They start confiscating the industries around in order to deal with these shortages. After that happens, the government then has consolidated all the producers of the resources, the distributors of the resources, the manufacturers that use the resources, and then they always take over the retail people as well. So like the retail stores, the retail chains, they start sending police, and they lock that down with rationing, and they make sure that the stores can't do what they want to do. They can't sell it to the right, to the people that they want to. They have to sell it to the people that the government tells them to do. And then inevitably, as I say, always happens with shortages, when there isn't enough to go around, the government will then start picking winners and losers. And if you're a loser, you don't get any. Not just you don't get very much, but usually they start doing triage. If there's only so much for 100,000 people to survive, and 200,000 people won't be able to survive any way we do it, we're going to cut them off completely. Don't give them any resources, just so we can keep our 100,000 that we want to keep around. That's how it always goes, and it's always the people that the power is the government derives their power from these people. So it's usually the capital, usually it's the military, usually it's the police, usually it's the civil servants that are keeping the government functioning. Those are the people that usually get the food. Those are the people that usually get the materials that they want or that they need. The military gets first dibs, and then it goes to the people that are the power base for the government. So this is how hoarding, anti-hoarding activities by the governments tends to go. It usually follows this rather straightforward pattern. So are they going to come to your house and say you have too many cans of, beets in your pantry? Probably not. They're going to go after raw resources from companies. They're going to be looking for trying to take palletfuls and truckloads full and rail car loads full of stuff. So if you're hoarding that at that type level, like you're a factory or a manufacturer or a warehouse, and you have pallets and pallets and truckloads full of something, yes, the government may go after you relatively quickly. But if you just have a little extra in your pantry, or you have a fair bit extra in your pantry, they probably won't go after you. Where they will go after you is once the crisis starts, they are going to limit how much you can buy. And if you buy too much, then they might come after you. But not the people who just happen to have enough of that. They're not usually the ones that the government goes after, unless you start trying to sell it. If you start trying to sell your excess online or somewhere that's trackable, or you start advertising that you're selling it, that will put you on the government radar real fast. Okay, that happened this last crisis. A lot of people got flagged relatively early in the crisis, where individuals started getting shut down because they were trying to sell it. The people that bought it and just kept their mouth shut, the government didn't go after them in the United States. Now that is starting to happen in other places, but as long as you didn't try reselling, that puts you on the map real fast. So really seriously consider advertising, selling that, because that will probably put you on the radar a lot faster. You should probably think about either just holding what you got, or if you're going to try to help other people out, you should give it away for free. Or you can maybe work out an exchange for some other goods or whatever. But you probably don't want to put a dollar amount or whatever your currency is in your country. You probably don't want to put a currency to it, and you probably don't want to advertise that. Those are two big flags that you want to stay away from if you don't want your stuff confiscated. Also, don't advertise the fact that you have pallets full of something, and don't keep it in warehouses or like storage units or something like that, where it could be spotted, and then people would say, well, you have way too much of that. If you keep it on property, on site, where on your property, then it's probably less likely to be gone after. All right, those are some insights. If you guys have other insights you want to share, please pop in the comments down below. If you want to read those articles and such like that for some of those case studies, in the description down below. As always, God bless you and have a great day. Steve Poplar out.